Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're getting into some pretty deep theological stuff to tackle a massive question. What exactly is God's will for us right now in this day and age? And why do the sources we're looking at say it's so incredibly important to understand? Okay, let's dive right in.
So, to set the stage, these sources paint a pretty stark picture of the world. They describe humanity as being in this desperate dilemma, basically trying with all its might to create its own security and happiness, but doing it completely apart from God. And because of that, it's just not working. But the idea goes even deeper. It's that people aren't really in control at all. They're described as puppets, being moved around by unseen spiritual forces in a much bigger cosmic drama.
So how do you make sense of all that chaos? Well, the framework we're exploring is built on one huge idea, that history isn't just a random series of events. Nope, it's actually a grand, unfolding plan, managed through different eras, or what the sources call eons.
And the key to understanding this is a concept called administration. It comes from a Greek word, oikonomia, which literally means home law. You can think of it like the orderly management of a huge estate or a household. In this context, each administration is like a distinct chapter in God's master plan, with its own unique way of dealing with humanity to move His ultimate purpose forward.
And here's how they lay out those chapters. It starts with innocence, before the knowledge of good and evil. Then comes the age of conscience. After that, human government is established. Then we get to the era of law, given specifically to Israel. But here's the real kicker. According to this view, every single one of these stages was a test. And in every single test, humanity failed. The point they're making is that this pattern proves the problem isn't the set of rules. It's something much, much deeper.
Okay, but this brings up a huge question, right? If God has this perfect plan, then what about all the evil, the opposition, the chaos we see in the world? How can His will be getting done if things are constantly going so wrong? Well, this is where the framework offers a really fascinating distinction to solve that puzzle. The answer, according to these sources, hinges on understanding that when the Bible talks about God's will, it can actually mean two very different things. Getting this distinction is, it's everything.
So on one side, you've got God's revealed will. These are His commands, His desires, things like, "You shall not murder." This is the will that we humans can, and obviously do, resist all the time. But then, on the other side, there's God's hidden counsel. This is His ultimate, unchangeable, unstoppable purpose. And here's the mind-bending part. This hidden counsel actually uses our resistance to His revealed will to move its own grand plan forward.
So you see, the point is absolutely crucial. This distinction changes everything. It means that even the worst acts of defiance against God's commands, and the classic example given is the crucifixion, were, in a shocking way, serving His unstoppable hidden plan all along. So instead of derailing God's purpose, they actually became the very means of its fulfillment. It's a pretty radical way to think about how God's plan actually works.
Which brings us right up to the present day. The sources call our current era the secret administration. And the key idea here is that this isn't just the next logical step in the timeline. No, it's something totally new. It's a purpose that was kept completely hidden from everyone in all the past ages. So, what makes this age so different? Well, for starters, it was a total secret, not even hinted at by the Old Testament prophets. Second, its defining characteristic is pure unmixed grace. It's not grace mixed with law anymore, it's just grace. Its focus is also different. It's spiritual and heavenly, not focused on an earthly kingdom. And finally, its blessings are for everybody, completely independent of the nation of Israel.
Okay, so if this is God's current program, what does that actually mean for an individual today? How are you supposed to align with it, and why is knowing about it considered so important?
The argument here is that a believer's role isn't about trying harder to follow rules from a previous administration. It's about, first and foremost, understanding the specific will of God for this current age of grace.
Now, this is really important. This understanding isn't something you can just figure out on your own by being smart. The sources are clear that it comes through a spirit of wisdom and revelation. In other words, the desire to even know these things is something God Himself awakens in a believer's heart.
And this all leads to a really radical conclusion about the goal of a believer. The idea is for your own will to be totally superseded by God's will. Now, that doesn't mean becoming some kind of mindless robot. It means joyfully aligning your own desires with God's revealed plan for right now, the one laid out in the scriptures for this age.
And this produces a complete reversal in the relationship between God and humanity. The message for today, in this view, isn't humanity on its knees begging an angry God for mercy. The roles have been flipped. God is the one reaching out, pleading with us to simply stop fighting and be reconciled to Him.
So, where is all this heading? What's the end game? Let's take a look at how this all builds to a final, incredible, universal conclusion. According to this framework, every single form of rule and authority, we're talking human governments, spiritual powers, even the future rule of Christ Himself, it's all just temporary. It's described as scaffolding, put up for a specific construction job, and designed from the very beginning to be taken down once the job is done.
And that job, the ultimate purpose of all these long ages of dealings with mankind, isn't about setting up a system of rule that lasts forever. It's about getting to a place where God can have a direct, loving, unmediated relationship with every single one of His creatures. The goal is for Him to simply take the place in every heart that His love deserves.
This all culminates in the grand finale, the consummation of the ages. Christ hands the now reconciled kingdom over to the Father. All that temporary scaffolding of rule comes down, and God's will becomes the single, joyful, unopposed will of all creation. All the confusion, all the chaos finally comes to an end.
In the end, there is just one single, dominant, loving will that brings universal harmony, as God finally becomes all in all.
And that leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought to chew on. If this whole framework is right, and all authority, human and spiritual, is just temporary scaffolding that's designed to be torn down, what does that tell us about its true purpose and its actual importance in our lives today?